Let's get started on this implementation. To begin, I'm going to open up my code editor and find the src snippets new page.tsx file. So here is our snippet create page. We are going to make use of the UseForm state hook inside of here. And that means we need to turn this entire thing into a client component. Client components cannot define server actions, which we did right here. So we now need to take the server action and move it over to our actions index.ts file that we had put together previously. So I'm going to find the create snippet function right here. I'm going to highlight the entire function. I'm going to cut it. I'll go over to actions index.ts. And I'm going to paste it down here at the bottom. I will make sure that I export that. And I no longer need to write out useServer at the top of this function because it's already at the very top of the file up here. So I can delete the useServer right there. Next up, I'm going to change my server action just a little bit. Remember, now whenever our server action gets called, it's going to receive two separate arguments. It's going to receive the form data and it's going to receive this form state as well. The form state is going to show up as the first argument always. So I'm going to add in an argument here of form state, and I will annotate its type as being an object that has a message property that is a string. Then for right now, I'm going to comment out everything inside of that function. And I'm just going to return an object with a message property that says title must be longer. So we're going to just make sure we always show the validation message. Now, this message is only going to be displayed to the user after they submit the form the first time. When they first navigate to the form, we have not yet executed the server action, so they will not see this message at all because the server action has not even been executed just yet. All right, that's all we have to do inside of our server action for right now. So let's now go back over to the page and set up our hook inside of it. Back inside of page.tsx, at the very top, we're not making use of these imports anymore, so we can delete them. And I will import UseForm state from react-dom. Then inside of here, we're going to call UseForm state. The first argument to this is going to be the server action function that we intend to call whenever the form gets submitted. So we need to import that server action that we just added to the index.ts file. Let's import it at the top with star as actions from @/actions. And then I will pass in actions.createSnippet. The second argument to this is going to be some initial state object. So initially, the very first time our form runs, we're going to first start off with an object that has a message property that is just an empty string. So that's our first initial starting state. We're going to add that in as a second argument to UseForm state. There we go. Whenever we call a UseForm state, we're going to get back an array that always has two elements inside of it. The first is going to be our form state. So that is the object that is going to be updated and changed over time and communicated back to us from our server action. So when we get this form state over here sent over to the server action, and then it eventually returns some new message object that maybe says need a longer title. And I'd said that it's going to somehow be communicated over to the page component. This is where it shows up. It shows up right here as the first element inside this array that gets returned from the hook. Then the second element inside that array is going to be an updated version of our server action. So behind the scenes, UseForm state takes the server action we provide right here, and it wraps it up with a bunch of additional functionality. And then it returns that updated version as the second element right here. We are then going to take that action and pass it off to our form instead of the original server action. And that's just about it. And the last thing we have to do is actually make use of that form state value. So let's go on down. And right above the button right here, I'm going to add in a div for right now that just prints out whatever form state.message is. Okay, let's save all this back with the browser and we'll see how we're doing. I forgot something important. So I told you you were going to see this error message at least once. Well, here's my turn. I'm seeing it at least once. So we're adding in our hook to this component. And remember, we can only use hooks inside of client components. I forgot to mark my component as being a client component. And that's the error I'm seeing here. So to fix this up, I need to go to the top of my component file and make sure it's clear that this is, in fact, a client component. Okay, let's save that now, and the error goes away. Very good. So now whenever I click on create, it's going to run my server action. The server action is always going to return that message object. It's going to have the updated message in there that says title needs to be longer. That's going to cause my server to run or re-render my form and send down some new HTML to my browser. So here we go. I'll click on create, and we got it. It works. Now here's the real test. I want to try disabling JavaScript inside my browser and make sure we still see the same behavior. To disable JavaScript, I can go to the little eye icon up here. I'll go to Site Settings. I'll find JavaScript, change it to block. I'll then go back over to my application. I'm going to reload. And now if I click on the create button again, I still see title must be longer. And that's without running any JavaScript inside the browser. Awesome. It works. I'm going to re-enable JavaScript really quickly. So now the last thing we really have to do is kind of update that error message a little bit and make sure it's a little bit more functional than it is right now. In other words, do some actual validation. And we need to uncomment all that code that was actually previously creating the snippet and redirecting us off to the other page.